So now we're going to move on from our What's the Weather app and our Open Weather Map API work, and we're going to look at a major and hugely powerful API, and that is the Google Maps API. So get started just by Googling Google Maps API, and that will take you to the homepage here, developers.google.com/maps. And remember, our aim here is not specifically to make you an expert on the Google Maps API, but for you to be able to quickly get to grips with any API you might want to use. So focus on reading documentation quickly, finding code snippets that you need, and how to get yourself signed up. So like all of the APIs that we're going to be using, the Google Maps API is free until you hit certain usage limits, and then you start paying for it. We're also going to need to create a key for us to connect to the API. So feel free to have a read of the main Google Maps APIs page if you want, but we're going to jump straight to the web section. And you'll see here that the Google Maps API actually includes a number of different APIs. So we've got the JavaScript API, which is the one we're going to be looking at in this video, which allows you to display and customize maps within your website. But we can also use things like Google Places and Google Street View within this API as well. So there's a lot we can do. And I'm going to start by clicking Get a Key. So then you can see we get this list of instructions and things that we're going to have to do. So just click OK there. And this will take you to console.developers.google.com. You may need to create a new account definitely if you don't have a Google account, but also if you haven't used the Google's developers site before. And then you get taken to this page where we can choose to create a new project. So just click Continue, and then it will create a new project for you, which will contain a particular key. That does take a little while. You can see it's happening over here. And there we go. So now we can create a browser API key, which will allow us to use the Google Maps API within our web apps. And if we want to, we can limit our key, so it will only be valid from certain websites to stop other people using it. But I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And there we go. There's my key. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I'll come back to it when I need it. Great. So now we've got our key, we can start using the Google Maps JavaScript API straight away. So let's click on that top link there. Fortunately, Google Maps has great documentation. So it's really easy to get started. I'm going to go straight to the sample section, but if you want more detail, you might want to pause the video and have a read of the guides or reference. And let's start off with just a simple map. And that will take you to this demo here, which displays a map of Sydney and the surrounding areas. And you can see we've got the JavaScript and HTML. I'm going to click on JavaScript and HTML to get the whole file that we need. And then you can in fact just click that link at the top to copy it to the clipboard. All right, so now we can just jump back over to our text editor, and I'm going to select all of the code from the weather app, delete it, and then put in the demo code from this page here. And the only bit we actually need to change is, of course, we need to put in our API key. So I'm going to copy that and paste it in just there. Great. So let's have a look and see what this does. And then we'll have a look at the code in more detail. So we don't need the city get variable anymore. And here we go. So there's our beautiful full screen, full page Google Map using the JavaScript API. And let's just have a quick look and see how this works. Obviously, we've got our usual HTML header section, a little bit of styling that just makes it full page, and then we've got one HTML element, this div with an ID of map, and then our JavaScript creates a variable map and a function init map, so initialize the map, and then it sets the map variable to a new Google Maps map, and that's going to be placed in the element with an ID of map, which is of course this div over here, with a center of a latitude and longitude, that, and a zoom level of 8. So we can experiment a little bit with that. What if we change the zoom level to 15, for example? So that zooms in a lot more detail than we had before. And if we have a zoom level of 4, then that will zoom ourselves out. There we go. So it's pretty straightforward, really. I'm just going to show you a couple of other things that we can do to customize our maps. If we go back to Home on the Google Maps JavaScript API page and scroll down, you can see we've got some more demos and sample code here. So the basic map I think we're used to, but we can also have a styled map. So you can see we can actually change the look of the Google map completely. So let's copy this code and then replace this in our JavaScript. I'm going to leave the var map there because I think we may need it, but let's have a look. So we're defining the init map function with a style array which has all these styles for our map. And then actually you can see the map variable is created there. So I don't need that. And then this is now familiar already. It's disabling the scroll wheel for us there. So the only thing that's really different is that we have a style array which contains these styles for our maps. So let's take a look. Wonderful. So just one challenge for you. Can you take a look at the Google Maps JavaScript API documentation and figure out how to display a map containing driving directions from London to Birmingham? Go for it. All right, hope you managed that. If we go back and have a look at the demos we were looking at before, you can see that there's one called directions, and this looks pretty close. So we've got our init map function again. We've got some locations of, in this case, Chicago and Indianapolis. That's what we're going to need to update. So let's copy all that down and then we'll take a look at it once we've got it up and running. So I've just replaced everything in my script tags with that. Let's just make sure that works. And there we go. So we've got our driving directions. So what have we actually done there? We've created a variable for each city with just a latitude and a longitude. Then we've got a map with a center of Chicago and zoom level of 7. And then we're creating a variable called directions display, which is a Google Maps directions renderer on our map. Then we're making a variable called request with a destination and origin and a travel mode of driving, and that then is passed to the directions service, checks the status of the directions, and if they're okay, then it displays them on the map. So all we have to do to customize this is to work out what the latitude and longitude of our two cities are. So our cities were London and Birmingham. And there are lots of ways to get the latitude and longitude of a city, but the simplest, as you might have guessed, is to just type it into Google. So something like London, latitude, longitude, and that will give you exactly the coordinates that we need. So we've got latitude there, 51.5072, and longitude 0.1275. Notice that's 0.1275 west, so that's going to be minus 0.1275. And then we want the same for Birmingham. So 52.4831. And again, it's west, so it's going to be a minus and 1.8936. Let's just update our variable names here. So the center we now want to be London. The origin is going to be London, and the destination is not Chicago, it's Birmingham. All right, let's take a look. And there we go. I'll just bring it in a little bit so you can see the whole thing there. Just about fits on the screen. Beautiful. So you notice it actually resumed there. If you change the screen size, it will still display the whole journey. Alright, so those were some pretty basic uses of the Google Maps JavaScript API, but you could then imagine, hopefully, how you might use this kind of power in your websites. You could offer directions from wherever your user currently is to your offices, or you could show some data about where your customers are. There are all sorts of ways that you could use this. And if you're excited by how you might use Google Maps in your web apps, I definitely recommend playing around a bit more with the API examples and sample code and seeing if you can do some more cool stuff with it. We're going to be moving on though and using another aspect of the Google Maps JavaScript API, and that is geolocation.